Let's take a look now at project number 10. This is our linear modeling capstone. I just added a note to the top of it. The capstone projects are your chance to show me everything you know up through this point. So you want to be as thorough as possible. These count both as an exam grade and as a project grade. So you're trying to showcase your skills here. Present to me that you understand some of the contents we were working on so far. All right, so you're gonna make a new Desmos graph. You're gonna get your own data set from Statista. And so I just opened Statista and I'm gonna search for the crude birth rate in Sweden, say. So don't pick the same country as me if you're doing this project. Pick something different. And there's a bit of options here. So crude birth rate, I can choose localized data from 2010 to 2020 or 1800 to 2020. I'm gonna go with this one just to see what it looks like for a while. So let's take a look at this birth rate picture here. And most countries are going to have something like this where it's going to jump around a little bit and then you might see a general overall trend. So when I look back at the project questions, you're going to search for a country. I did also note to already do another project on Ghana. And so you can look at my sample video here from Ghana and watch what I talked about in that video for an example of what you need to do. So again, there were some more questions, so I'm going to talk about it again. So pick a country, sign up for that country. The link to sign up for that country is on JetNet. Make sure you pick something that no one else has chosen and that I haven't chosen in one of my sample videos. Then make a scattergram for your country's birth rate. So I've been getting some questions about this one, about do I need to use all the data? And there can be a lot, especially if this is coming from 1800 to 2020. So you're not going to pick every single ordered pair. Actually, this one only gives you every 5 years. And I'm still not going to pick all of those, but I'm going to pick something where I start to see a trend. Now, you do want to use recent data. So I see the clearest trend probably right here in this segment, but that stops in 1935. So I'm going to get closer. I'm going to get into 2020. I want to have all the recent stuff and maybe some of the older stuff as well. I can use all of it if you want, if you don't have too much of it. Not all countries go back into 1800 for their data set, but I need the recent stuff. Okay, so I'm going to look for something where I think I'm going to have a pretty good pattern. And with this big dip right here and then going back up, I think I'm probably going to start this one in 1945. I want my data to have a consistent either downward trend or upward trend. I don't want to go down to 2000 and up to 20 because that's just not enough to look at. I need to have several data points, and just having like 1, 2, 3, or 4 or 5 is not really enough. Give me a larger span than just 2000 to 2020 if possible. Some countries only give you data from 2000 to 2020, but they would give you not every 5 years, but every year, and that would be okay because you have more information. But what I would recommend if this were my country, we'll be going from 1945 to 2000 because it is a general downward trend, even with that up bump right here in 1995. So and this little constant bump right here in 65 to 70. It is generally downward. And so I would make my predictions of 1945 to 2020 if this were my country. Now, it's not going to be a perfect model. It's probably going to cut the middle right here and go too high on this segment, too low on this segment, maybe a little low over here. I don't know what it's going to do. But that's something that I can talk about in the part of the project where I explain the data set and I explain my choices. So I'm going to go back and look at the project here for a second. Okay, so we're going to enter a scattergram for your country's birth rate. You're going to find the regression line for the data, and you're going to make a few predictions. So the data isn't up for 2021, so you make a prediction for 2021. Then you're going to use the model to predict when the birth rate will be up or down 10% of its 2010 value. So in my case, I'm going to go down because my birth rates are decreasing generally. If your birth rates for the country you chose were increasing generally, then you'd go up. But in this case, I'd go down. So I'd go, wrong button, sorry about that, guys. I would go into 2010 and say that in 2010 it was 11.9. So I would go over into Desmos and I said it was 11.9. And I want to find out what 10% of 11.9 is. And then I actually want to subtract that from 11.9 to go down by 10%, so 10.71. And so back over in my regression model, I want to find out when, in what year, the birth rate's down to about 10.71. So back over on the data side, you can see that it does go below it somewhere here, but that's not going to be the answer that we're looking for. We're looking at what the model predicts. So remember, the model is going to slice through this, probably going to be a little high through this section, and then we want to figure out just on the model, what's the year predicted? You can compare it to the year in the data, but what does the model say? Not the data, the model, the regression line. What is the prediction? And that gives us a little bit of an indication of how good the model is. Okay, so back over here, that's your 2021 prediction, just find out this year, and your 10% up down prediction. So that finishes the project part of it. Then we go into the voiceover where some of the more explanation pieces happen. So you need to talk out loud to me and maybe show off your data set from Statista and discuss what the data set was and what modifications you made. Everybody made modifications, whether or not you think you did. You made some modifications or assumptions. So in the Sweden data, like I said, I modified this because there was a lot of variance here, and I saw that this upward trend didn't match with the downward trend I was looking for. So there could be a lot of different things that you can say here. Tell me where you started, tell me where you ended, tell me why, and tell me why you think that these were good choices. So what about this made it look linear? What about this made it look like it would be the right set to use? Give me some reasons for your choice. I've alluded to some of those earlier. Okay, so that's first. Next, discuss and explain whether or not a linear model was an appropriate choice. So this is different from the modifications you made. So the modifications were prior to creating the regression model. Now, after you created the regression model, tell me if it was good. Tell me if it had a high R value, if it made good predictions, if you think these predictions are reliable. I don't know what you think unless you tell me. So tell me if you think the model is going to do a good job. You made some predictions. Do you think they're reliable? Tell me. Okay, so can it give good predictions? Some of the models may give good predictions for some values, but not for others. Tell me for what values you think it will give good predictions and which it won't, or if it won't give any, tell me and tell me why. Okay, so you're showing me that you understand what a model can do and when it is appropriate to use that model to make predictions. Okay, now part C, this has two parts to it, interpret the slope and the vertical intercept. You can do those in separate notes, or you can just talk about them separately, but they both need to be explained. They come from the regression equation that you found, and make sure that you talk about the value and its units. We spent some time talking about the value and its units in Project 7. The slope is going to have units like the output, whatever it is changing by, so increasing or decreasing by, how much, per how often. Make sure you use that kind of sentence to explain the slope. And again, you can talk about how that conclusion from your slope matches up with your table or not. And then your vertical intercept, it's an ordered pair, it has an x coordinate and a y coordinate. Tell me what both parts of the ordered pair mean in terms of this situation. And again, another opportunity to finish off your discussion of whether or not that was a reasonable prediction. Okay, and then for the last two parts, for the explain and demonstrate the 2021 prediction, you've already given me the prediction. Same thing for the 10% down, up, down prediction. You already given me the prediction here. So you're not just restating what the prediction is. You are showing me how you got it. So there are many ways that you could have chosen to get this prediction. So for these two predictions, you can tell me things like, I plugged in an input value of blank, and that led me to this conclusion. I plugged it into the function, or I found it graphically. How did you find it graphically? How did you plug it in? Did you plug it in for input? Did you plug it in for output? So those are the pieces that you're going to explain to give me your mathematical understanding of what was done to come up with your two predictions. All right. Once you finish this recording, you can record in Loom. That's where I recorded mine. You are going to submit 2 links to me on JetNet. One of your links is going to be your Desmos link, and the other one's going to be your Voiceover link. Send me any questions if you have them. Thanks.